TIL that the lowest recorded Gallup Poll presidential approval rating is from Harry Truman, who reached 22 during the Korean War. This was due in large part to Truman deciding to relieve General Douglas MacArthur of command due to his desire to use nuclear weapons to win the war. MacArthur never asked to use nuclear weapons, he asked to conventionally bomb the bridges over the Yalu and Truman ordered him not to. MacArthur took his argument to the press and was rightly relieved for insubordination. His only communication on nuclear weapons was whether they were available if the Soviets, whose pilots were actively fighting in the war at this point, dropped a nuclear bomb. MacArthur was informed nuclear weapons were present in the Marianas but the decision to use them would remain with the President and the JCS. That was the extent of conversations about nuclear weapons. For anyone interested in history, Truman by David McCulloch is as magnificent as it is long. But more than anything, that novel shows how fantastic a President Truman was, specifically his handling of Korea. If it weren't for Truman, the US would have either lost in Korea or would have started World War III. Luckily for all of us, Truman decided to pull the US military back just as it was set to take over North Korea, which would have involved fighting the Chinese who used their own forces to halt the US advance. MacArthur also continued advancing towards the Chinese border despite repeated orders to stop. This led to China getting anxious and joining in on the war and pushing the US forces all the way back to the 38th parallel. Douglas MacArthur is largely responsible for North Korea's existence today. He was a fucking idiot that fell in love with his own legend. I remember first learning about MacArthur from old mass reruns and thought he was a little bit nutty then. After I got older and did research, I think he started losing his mind after the Japanese took the Philippines and it all went downhill from there. You use a bomb in Korea, then it would have set a precedence that we would use it in every war. And the world would be so much worse off. And yes, I know the world is still a shit show. USA being known for nuking other countries would have gotten us nuked ourselves. Seems like he saved our country from fallout and that 78 of Americans are too stupid to see that. I mean, he was right to do so too. MacArthur is generally considered among the worst, possibly the worst World War II general by modern historiography, but at the time he was basically a god. What if history? What if we used the bomb on the Soviets right as World War II was ending? This idea was bounced around for a bit at the time. What would our world be like today? This tells you so much about the mentality of the average person in the so-called best of times 1950s nuke the fuckers. Thank the gods for Truman. I bet MacArthur's would have been satisfied if USSR hadn't yet developed their nukes. The war would have ended sooner, with a higher cost of victims. Here goes the hair. There goes the hair. Where's Harry Truman? He's dead in the ground. He's dead in the ground. He's dead, 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 dead. MacArthur was a master of public relations, too bad he wasn't a master of warfare, or else he'd actually have achieved something. MacArthur abandoned American troops in the Pacific, Philippines theater. Bataan Death March, POW, hell ships to Japan. Pretty sure Truman considered himself to be the only person who should have an opinion about using the bomb. That plan was absolutely madness. 30-50 cobalt-based nukes cutting the peninsula off for 6,120 years. Madness. Just goes to show that sometimes presidents have to be willing to make tough decisions even if it's unpopular. I'm not sure which US general's public perception was further separated from reality, MacArthur or Patton. MacArthur was a fucking psycho. I guess the public weren't aware at the time or didn't care. What's hilarious is that Truman hated Oppenheimer because he didn't like what was being done. Unconstitutionally starts a war. Considered a hero today for not nuking their civilians. Truman may have the lowest recorded poll, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. So there could have been a victory achieved with nukes, yet they didn't use them? It's crazy to me we got involved in another war so quickly after World War II. That and bringing China into the war by bombing on the Yalu River. We wanted to drop another atomic bomb just so we could say we won. Sometimes history looks more kindly on you than the present day.